Another day, another Giannis Antetokounmpo trade report here. Mike Chase here on TikTok, YouTube, wherever, talking to you about the Giannis trade stuff that came out today. And honestly, we've always heard, I think what you've seen a lot of NBA pundits talk about this Giannis trade and kind of what it needs to look like for Giannis, and the teams that they want involved, are always kind of those teams that are always involved. Now we've seen the Celtics, now that they get bounced, also now they need Giannis. Now you got to get rid of Jaylen Brown. You need Giannis in there. And one of the things that I wanted to really talk about and kind of give my opinion on is, feel like the perspective for what the Bucks should look for. I have a little bias here. You see my thing right here. I have a NBA championship banner right there. Not a banner, you know what I mean, a pennant, whatever. Bucks fan was so excited when the team finally won a championship. Felt like Giannis would get at least one championship here in Milwaukee. He did. And I think the team had a real shot to go back to back. Chris Middleton gets injured, and I think that pretty much kind of put the nail in the coffin of that championship window. I think there's a way out of the Middleton era to with him there, and Drew Holiday, who got played off the court in that series versus Miami, which is why I always think it was so weird that the NBA was like, man, why did the Bucks trade Drew Holiday? It's like, because Jimmy Butler absolutely abused them in that series. So I don't know why that's always been this weird mystery. It's like, man, why did they get? It was very obvious why they got rid of Drew Holiday. He really couldn't be that number 2 or 3 guy anymore. Trade him to Portland, who then he gets rerouted to Boston. He ends up being the number 4 or 5 guy on that team. Made a lot of sense at that point in time. And then eventually we kind of, couldn't really rely on him then. And then he got traded, I forgot where, back to Portland, I think. He ends up back in Portland, or whatever. I think the perspective of this trade always gets looked at as the perspective for Giannis in his, future, his career. And I think that's wrong. I think the most important thing about this trade, if it is going to happen, one, I would like for it not to happen. I'd love for Giannis to finish his career in Milwaukee. This feels like the most real possibility of it not actually finishing in Milwaukee right now. And if that is the case, if his career is not going to finish in Milwaukee like I wish it would, I wish he'd be a one franchise player like Dirk, like Kobe, like those guys like that. But clearly he thinks he can get another ring someplace else. I doubt it. The reason I doubt that is I feel like what's going to happen is I think the team that will trade for him is eventually going to have to give up too much of what makes a really good NBA team right now. I think what we're seeing is we're not in that super team era anymore necessarily, right? We are not in an era where you can stack 2 or 3 stars, be thin depth wise, and go win championships. I don't think we're in that era anymore. I just don't think the way the apron works, the way the cap works, it just doesn't work like that anymore. I think we're kind of, I don't understand why the NBA media hasn't caught on to that. The NBA media always, likes to, toot their own horn about how smart and forward thinking they are. It's very obvious. You look at the teams who has the best shot. They're in the Western Conference, and they're teams like the San Antonio Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Minnesota Timberwolves. For the most part, those teams, those cores, the real core players of all of those teams were drafted, right? Now, can they stick together? Maybe, probably not for long. I mean, the Thunder, everyone's talking about how long are they going to reign. It's like, you probably, if I think we're in an era where you have a window. If you're a team, you're going to get maybe 2, maybe 3 championships out of it. Maybe not all at once, but that's kind of the run you're going to have, just the way the cap is set up. We're not set up, I think, right now to have this long kind of dominant run. Which gets back to the Milwaukee Bucks, in my opinion. So the perspective of this trade has always been, again, I've said this, it's viewed as kind of Giannis's perspective. The trade needs to be viewed as from the Bucks' perspective. You're the Milwaukee Bucks. The best thing you can possibly do is to get the best return for the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis's future be damned. And, there's always this idea when teams have to trade these star players, you always hear it from the national NBA media. It's always kind of viewed as you have to do right by the player. You got to do right by the player. You got to do right by your franchise player. You got to do right. Think about how other players, you don't care about that, right? Free agency dollars have gone down around the league since this new CBA. There is no middle market of guys anymore. That's out the window. So if that's the case, guys and players aren't going to care that how you did whatever with Giannis. They're not going to care because they're like, I don't care. They're offering me $20 million. I'm going to go get $20 million. I don't care. That's Giannis's deal. That's not my deal. If I'm on the open market and a team wants to give me $20+ million and that's 7-8 million more than the other team, I'm going to go sign for that $20 million. That's just the way it is. So I don't think you can view that. If you're the Bucks, that can't even be in a part of the conversation. Well, we don't want people to be mad at it. Look, the minute Giannis established himself as a superstar player, which was probably, I think, really his second to third year, especially, when Jabari Parker went down, the way Giannis, I think, kind of just grew as a player after Jabari Parker tore his ACL his first year. I think it was the third year, honestly, really, where it kind of became like, okay, Giannis is going to be the guy here, not Jabari Parker. And, the minute that happened, national NBA media wanted him out of Milwaukee. They just did. That's just a fact. You can't deny that. The national NBA media, they do, if it's not like a warm place like Texas, if it's not Chicago or New York, they do not want star players there. They don't. They do not want star players in places like Milwaukee. Timberwolves fans, you better hope Anthony Edwards wins an NBA championship soon. Because if he doesn't, you're going to start hearing those murmurs like, it's time for Anthony Edwards to go somewhere he can win, like Miami. You're going to hear it. You just are. It's the way it is. You would think the commissioner would do a better job of kind of putting his thumb down on some of these media people, kind of like telling Stephen A. Smith, you need to chill the fuck out. He doesn't do that because Adam Silver, he views this as, well, this gets people talking on social media, so that's good for the league, right? Adam Silver is the first Reddit commissioner. Right? He is a commissioner who gets his ideas from Reddit. He's a commissioner who puts his finger there, and whichever wind the ways that Reddit's going or Twitter's going, that's where Adam Silver goes. So if you're the Bucks, you have to take the best deal and get the best deal you can possibly get, regardless of what the national media is going to say. Screw what the national media wants. Trade Giannis to where you think you can get the best deal. And I've been talking for so long here, because I go off on these weird tangents. I did write some notes, but it's hard for me to follow them. I think the best place, if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, to trade Giannis Antetokounmpo, in my opinion, no one's talking about this. I'm not sure why. This was talked about when Dallas got the pick last year. It's like, hey, did the Mavericks trade that pick for Giannis? Weird how that's not coming up for the Wizards. Very fun. I mean, I don't get the NBA national media, truthfully, really does hate markets that are not Los Angeles. That's not Boston. That's not New York. That's not Miami. That's not Texas. They love these 5 markets. Sometimes Chicago, but I mean, if it's not one of these 6 markets, you can get fucked, basically, is how the NBA national media has basically treated it. If you're not in one of these 6 markets, go fuck yourself. You should just be grateful to even have an NBA team and be able to watch some games. Okay? The real heroes of this league are the Boston Celtics, the New York Knicks, a team in Texas, and the Lakers, and maybe the Heat. I would say like all of Florida, but like the national media doesn't even seem to care about Orlando for whatever reason. I think it's because Orlando, that's where a bunch of hicks in Disney World is. So, again, the NBA media, very East Coast, West Coast, right? Like, the NBA is very much an East Coast, West Coast league. That's just the way the league thinks. It's weird. It shouldn't be that way. You see the NFL, they're whatever coast, whatever middle of the country, doesn't matter. That's not how the NFL operates, and it seems to work out for them, but, this is the NBA. The Washington Wizards. If you're the Milwaukee, it took me 9 minutes to get this. I'm really sorry. If you're the Milwaukee Bucks, I 100% call up the Washington Wizards and ask for that first pick and say, hey, we'll ship you Giannis and we'll ship you pick 10 to get that deal done. Giannis wants to compete. You can't go compete with Trae Young and Anthony Davis. I mean, immediately that becomes a top team in the Eastern Conference, in my opinion. Giannis and Anthony Davis defensively. Trae Young, you can almost forget about Trae Young's, not being a good defender. If you pair him with, Anthony Davis and Giannis Antetokounmpo defensively, that is an elite unit right there. It doesn't matter how bad Trae Young is. It doesn't matter that he's kind of like this thing sitting on my desk when it comes to defense. It doesn't matter. And with that pick, if you're the Bucks, you have your choice of AJ DeBonsta, I hope I'm saying his name right, or Darren Peterson. Right off rip, you have a shot at that. And if you really wanted to, if you decide, hey, you know what, we like Darren Peterson, you can probably call the Utah Jazz and get something out of them. So, hey, you guys really want DeBonsta? You guys really want him that badly? You've been putting the brakes on him for like however long. You really want him that badly? We'll give him to you because we're happy with taking Darren Peterson. It's very, very, very simple here if you're the Bucks. I think this is the year where I think you actually can trade for the number 1 overall pick in the draft if you're the Bucks. And you can nab the first pick and trade Giannis. And he gets to go to a team that can compete. Isn't that what this is all about, right? This is all about winning championships and setting himself up. What's a better spot than this? He gets to go to a team with Trae Young, with Anthony Davis. They probably will still have some cap flexibility to make something happen and fill out the rest of the roster. To me, this is the best trade option that I don't see anyone talking about. Yet last year, when the Dallas Mavericks got the first pick, all we heard up until the draft was, if you're the Bucks, you really, if you're the Bucks, this is you really need to go and do this. If you're the Bucks, you should be looking to do this. And what was it? Was it the second, third pick? Hey, if you're the Spurs, you trade that pick for Giannis. Yet I don't see any NBA national media even suggesting one of these 3 picks could be traded for Giannis. At all, whatsoever. Even the top 4, you could throw in the Bulls right there. Throw in the Clippers, right? Caleb Wilson, I'm not sure if he's going to go 3-4, whatever range Caleb Wilson's go. He seems to have a lot of hype on him. It's very strange. Not this year. Is it because it's Washington? Is it because it's Utah? Is it because it's Memphis, who we've heard, you see multiple players, they need to move that team to Nashville. And Adam Silver's like, I actually think that's again, Adam Silver, total pussy, total cuck. Completely worthless as a commissioner. I really don't get how NBA owners, governors, don't just tell this guy, hey, if you don't start backing us, the teams, the franchises, we're going to vote you the fuck out of here. I really don't understand why that doesn't happen. Chicago, it seems like the NBA media, they're kind of out on Chicago. I think it's because NBA media for the most part is dorky, nerdy Reddit kind of white guys, and maybe they're afraid to go to Chicago or something. I don't really know. Again, but I just think it's interesting that we're not hearing any talk whatsoever of Giannis being traded for one of these top picks. Because I think if you're the Bucks, that's the best option, right? Is there going to be I don't even think the 2027 draft is going to be as hyped as this draft. That's why you saw so much tanking. In my opinion, if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, this is the best option. If you can trade Giannis for one of these top 3 picks, preferably one of the top 2, I don't think Utah would trade out unless they felt hey, you know what? If we can get Giannis, again, but I think Washington makes the most sense. Trae Young, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Anthony Davis. That's a team that I think in the Eastern Conference can compete for a championship. If that's what Giannis truly wants, if this is all about competing for championships, what's the better option? I don't think Minnesota is going to be interested for what they have with Jaden McDaniels, so I don't think that's going to happen. So you can cross them off. What's the other option? The Lakers, they don't have assets. The Celtics, I think the Milwaukee Bucks fan base would actually be totally opposed to that trade. So I cross that off. The Knicks, if they fail to win a championship, what do they have to trade? Jalen Brunson? I don't want Jalen Brunson for Giannis. That's a stupid trade. So, the Miami Heat, they don't have assets. I'm sorry, Heat fans, you do not have assets. Please stop. You have nothing of interest that anyone would want for a player like Giannis. You don't. Sorry. So, no. The Thunder, if they fail to win a championship, do they kind of panic and say, hey, I don't know. I don't really want any of their other players for Giannis. To me, it is the best option here on the table in the house of cards. The best card to pull is to trade for one of these top 2 picks. And I think the one that you can trade for is that first pick. The Wizards don't even sound necessarily opposed to trading the pick. I think the Wizards are looking. I honestly do wonder if the Wizards are like, hey, I kind of hope the Bucks call. I'm not sure how that would the Bucks call first or the Wizards call first. Is this like a game of chicken where they don't know, hey, who's going to call? Who's going to make the first move? I call and I immediately call the Wizards and say, hey, would you be interested in this? And I don't even run it by Giannis if I'm the Bucks front office. If I'm John Horst, the Bucks ownership, leadership, I don't even run it by him. I am rushing to the phones, making that call, seeing, hey, can we get a framework on this going? Can we put this together to happen? Why not? I'm asking you, why not? What's the better trade option out there? There's not one. In my opinion, there's not one. You go get one of these top 2 picks, you trade Giannis, you draft Darren Peterson, AJ DeBonsta, whoever. Maybe Caleb Wilson. I know that's a guy who's, again, getting a lot of hype. I don't watch a lot of college basketball. I just kind of know the top prospects, and these are the guys who are getting really hyped up. If you're the Bucks, the best case scenario is to get one of those guys if you're starting this rebuild process. Because if you're trading Giannis, you're rebuilding, right? You're going to trade Miles Turner after that. You're going to trade Bobby Portis after that. You're going to move off of a lot of guys. You might still keep the 10th pick, honestly. Who knows? Honestly, you might get a couple more picks back from the Wizards that are further down the line. You can package those with, pick 10, maybe trade up to pick 5 or 6 or whatever and get another player in the top 10 of this draft. Maybe you can get Yaxel Lenenborough in this draft as well as getting Darren Peterson or AJ DeBonsta or Caleb Wilson, whoever. There are options here for the Bucks to really set themselves up, kind of almost similar to how the Spurs have set themselves up, how the Thunder have set themselves up. You do it by trading away star players and you get the best picks you can. And you got to get them now in this draft before we get this weird lottery reform nonsense, which I wish I would have did a video on sooner. But that's my thought. The Giannis trade, I think kind of a trade that no one's really talking about. And I think why I think a lot of the NBA media is looking at this trade wrong. I think they're looking at this from just purely Giannis's perspective. I guess that's more interesting to talk about because, hey, fuck Milwaukee, right? That's kind of the thought process. Good. We're glad that they're not going to be relevant anymore. We hate having to go there to cover, the Bucks playoff runs in April, May, or even June, right? We don't like doing that. We want to go to Miami. We want to go to LA. We want to go to Golden State. I'm sure they're going to try to get the Golden State thing fired up again. Hey, here's Pods, whoever, Pods. You want Pods and Draymond Green in the 11th pick? No, how about you send Steph over? How come there's no talks of Steph Curry getting, I'm going to do a video on that eventually. Steph Curry and the Warriors, they've failed to make the playoffs how many times the past couple years? Not a single trade rumor regarding Steph Curry when he fails to make the playoffs, right? Not a single one. No Bam Adebayo, trade rumors when the Heat, get bounced in the play-in. That doesn't happen. No LaMelo Ball trade rumors when they fail to make the playoffs. All these other guys can miss the playoffs, and there's no trade rumors. Giannis and the Bucks struggle, knowing we knew that this team was going to struggle this past year, and no matter what, there's trade rumors. Guy wins a championship, there's still trade rumors. So just kind of something weird with the NBA media. I'm sorry for this video to be so long, but yeah, that's my number one trade. I think that's the number one thing that everyone is kind of just missing here. It's only thought about from Giannis's perspective. Is not thought about from everyone else's, which is the Milwaukee Bucks. The most important perspective in this trade is what the Milwaukee Bucks do afterwards. That is the number one thing. And we keep being told, well, you got to do right by Giannis. Here's the thing. The Bucks did right by Giannis. I'll make this final point here before I get out of here. They did do right by Giannis, and they've done right by Giannis every time. Every time he soured on a coach, they fired the coach. His brothers are not good enough to be NBA players anywhere else. Guess what? There's been 2 roster spots for the past couple years eaten up by his brothers. They have always paid him. They have always gone balls to the wall to try to win a championship here with him and to appease him to do everything. The Milwaukee Bucks have done everything right by Giannis. Always. They have always done that. And Giannis has always kind of played the game of, I stay out of that stuff because he wants, he's a great politician. He doesn't want to be viewed as Clearly his agent or his agency, his PR people, they don't want him to kind of have that GM kind of view to him, kind of what LeBron has, or they don't want him viewed kind of in the Kevin Durant light. Kevin Durant has completely destroyed his PR over the past couple years. They don't want Giannis viewed that way, right? The idea that Giannis knew nothing about the Damian Lillard trade, we all know that's bull. We all know the Bucks don't do anything if they don't run it by Giannis. Oh, I had no idea they were going to stretch wave Damian Lillard. Yeah, you did. Dame didn't even want to be here. Dame did nothing but mope for like 2 years that he wasn't in Miami, and then he blew out his Achilles. He was never going to play another game for the Bucks. Sorry. Everyone kind of knew this was going to be a kick the can year, and then all of a sudden he comes in the year, kind of acts surprised about it. Like everyone knew this was going to be like kind of taking a kind of a stretch year, basically. You're kind of, is what it is. Everyone knew this team wasn't going to be particularly good. It was going to be tough to make the playoffs. Almost did, but Giannis was hurt for a bunch of the season. So either way, I'm going to try to use this channel a little bit more to talk sports. If this ends up on TikTok, cut up into different parts, cool. On shorts, cool. I'm not really sure, but yeah. I think this is the best, again, I'll say it right now, the best trade option for the Bucks in trading Giannis Antetokounmpo is to trade him for either the number 1 pick in the draft from the Wizards or the number 2 pick in the draft from the Jazz. Those are the 2 best options. Everything else is you just tell Giannis, I think, to shove it. And you try to make something happen where you can maybe try to get another player here and try to make it work for next season. And if it doesn't work by midseason, before the trade deadline, then you move them. Simple as that. Easy peasy. But all this other stuff, the Celtics, no. They have nothing that I would want. I'm sorry, I don't want Jaylen Brown in return for Giannis. Jaylen Brown can stay in Boston. No thanks. Timberwolves, that's not going to happen. Again, I don't know what the actual options are right now. The Knicks, no. The Thunder, I don't think they'd break up their core for that. The Lakers have no assets. The Clippers have no assets. Houston, no. I don't want Alperen Sengun. He's a bum. No thanks. The Heat, they don't have assets unless you're trading Bam to us, which you're not. So no. At this point, it's 1 or 2 pick or bust, in my opinion. 1 or 2 pick, or we're just riding it out with them. I think that's the only plan you should have if you're the Bucks. So, thanks for watching this. What are your thoughts? What do you think the Bucks should do about a Giannis trade in your opinion? Let me know down below. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all other good stuff. And I'll see you next time. Yes, you. I'll see you next time. You'll be back here. I promise that. I promise you'll be back.